I was here about a year ago, and this is one of my favorite programs, so I'm super excited to be here today. I'm a pretty casual, informal person, so I'm just going to kind of tell my story, and if you have any questions throughout, feel free to raise your hand, and we can just kind of have a fun conversation. Obviously, I started Goat Yoga. I think that it's one of the coolest businesses in Austin. I don't think it's the most successful or the biggest or making the most money, but it's definitely the most fun, and I think it's one of the coolest. So I think that I'm pretty lucky, but it was a long road to get here and a lot of work and a lot of crazy things that happened to start this business and get to where we are today. So I kind of want to share that part with you because I think a lot of the times we see these really cool businesses and people, starting fun businesses and being very successful, but we don't see what's happening behind the scenes or underneath that in order to get them there. So I kind of just want to share my story with you for that reason. And then if you have any questions or if I can help you in any way, we'll do that at the end. But again, feel free to stop me if anything doesn't make sense or if you have any questions during. So we started about almost 2.5 years ago, and we actually started kind of by accident. I didn't know very much about yoga, and I didn't know very much about goats when we got started. So that's kind of crazy, right? I own a goat yoga business, and I knew nothing about goats or yoga a few years ago. But I was working actually right across the way here at HomeAway. I had a really great, fun job, and I was enjoying it, but my whole life I've been a super hard worker. I've always known that I wanted to do something a little bit bigger that was making an impact, and I knew that I wanted to work for myself someday, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't have any crazy hobbies or passions that I thought could turn into a business, but I knew that I wanted to work for myself. And so I, kept trying all these different things. I actually grew up in San Diego and quit my job there. I had a great job there, left everything behind to move here and try a bunch of different things. So for a while I tried to be an Uber driver while I was trying to figure out what kind of business I could start. I tried to do Postmates and Favor where you deliver food to people because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I did all these different crazy jobs. And then I started working at HomeAway. And I actually really liked my job there. I was having fun. I got a really big promotion, and so I was pretty happy. And then Hurricane Harvey happened. Does anybody remember that in Houston? Yeah, so a lot of people lost everything. They lost their houses. A lot of people got hurt, or they lost family members or pets or whatever, and it was super sad and heartbreaking to me. And I knew a lot of people that lived down there, had family down there. And so it kind of broke my heart. And I had just started dating my now fiance, and his mom lives on a goat ranch. She raises goats and sells them as pets. And so I went to meet her about 3 months into dating him and met her goats and never really thought anything of it. Well, a few weeks later, I was laying in bed one night and just had this idea that I should plan a goat yoga event in Austin to raise money for something. And right after that is when Hurricane Harvey happened. So I decided that I would plan this goat yoga event to raise money, and we would donate everything to Hurricane Harvey victims. And so when we decided this, we started going through the numbers. My fiance thought I was kind of crazy because it sounds like a crazy idea. Who wants to do yoga with goats and raise money for something? It was just, yes. Oh, okay. And so it was kind of a crazy idea, but I finally talked him into it, and we started going through numbers and logistics and figuring out how we would make it work, and we decided to try it 6 days later. So at this point we had no location. I wasn't teaching yoga at the time, so we had no yoga teachers. We weren't really sure how it was going to work or go down, and we decided to try it anyway. So we planned this event and put it online on Facebook, and it sold out in 30 minutes. We had people donate to save a spot because we were afraid it was going to get too big and we weren't going to be able to handle everybody. So we had people donate to save a spot, and it sold out in 30 minutes. And so then we were like, we really need to figure out where we're doing this event that everybody has now bought tickets for, and who's going to teach the classes, and how this is going to work, how we're going to check people in. So in 6 days, we figured out that we would do it on the top of my fiance's rooftop of the parking garage that he was living in. So we convinced them to let us use the rooftop. So we would shuttle people up through the elevator because you had to have a little fob thing to get upstairs. And so we had a table set up in the parking garage downstairs where we would shuttle people up to the rooftop to do this event. We started just going on Instagram and asking everyone we know for yoga instructor contact information. And so, long story short, we planned this whole big event that I don't know, 200 people or something came to in 6 days. And from there, the rest is kind of history. We donated all of the money that we made that day to, I think we ended up doing one of the humane societies in Houston that was sheltering all the animals that were misplaced during the hurricane. And so then the next week we decided that we would do it again. And then Hurricane Irma happened. And so we donated all the proceeds to Hurricane Irma. And from there, it just kind of snowballed and just turned into this big business that we couldn't really stop if we tried. And so at the time I was still working at HomeAway, and I had that full-time job, and then I was doing this just kind of for fun on the side. Well, remember I said my whole goal, my whole life was to be able to work for myself one day. And that just kind of happened on its own. And so a few months later, I ended up quitting my job at HomeAway, which was really scary because a lot of people were telling me, who knows if goat yoga is going to last? You might go out of business in the next year. You're going to leave this stable job. What if you stop making money? What are you going to do? But I did it anyway, and here we are. I've been doing this for 2.5 years now, and again, I think I have one of the coolest jobs ever. All my friends today are out having fun, and I'm gonna go right after this work. I have 3 events back to back. I'm gonna be working all day today. But at the end of the day, I get to hang out with baby goats and make people super happy and have fun and laugh. So I really couldn't ask for anything more. Not to mention, I today will make more money than I used to make in a whole month at HomeAway. So money is not everything, but it definitely, you need it to keep your business growing and to keep being able to give back and make an impact. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. But again, there were a lot of struggles to get here. So for example, when I first moved to Austin and I was doing all these different jobs before I could figure out what I wanted to do, I got to the point where I had no money to pay my rent, and I had to call my little brother in San Diego and ask him to send me money so that I could pay my rent because I had nothing. So I kind of had to sort of hit the bottom before I could build this really fun, cool business and life. So yeah, then we were on Shark Tank obviously this year. So I think that my biggest sort of thing or piece of advice is when you're looking for ideas to start your business or some sort of product or service that you want to create, I think that the more people that you can help, if you do it from a place of I want to help people or impact people, and it doesn't have to be you don't have to be volunteering your whole life, or you don't have to necessarily have a nonprofit, even though that's really great too. But even just a little product like a pen. How many people use a pen every day, right? Like it makes someone's life easier. So it can be something super small that seems insignificant like that, but if you're helping people or making their life easier or more fun in any way, that's when you make the most money, because the more people that you help or impact in a good way, the more money you're going to make, the more your business is going to grow. So we started this business. I quit my job. We got to a point where it was really stable. We were selling out all of our classes still. But what's the next step? When you start a business and it's stable and you're making good money, what would you want to do next? Anyone want to guess? Exactly. You want to grow. So you want to figure out how you're going to keep growing. And so we decided that we would try to open a yoga studio, because we noticed that a lot of people were coming to goat yoga, as you can imagine, just for the goats. They didn't really care about yoga, but they wanted to hang out with the goats. And then once they got there and did the yoga class, they realized that yoga was actually kind of fun and it wasn't as scary as they thought. So we noticed that a lot of people were actually trying yoga for the first time, and then they wanted to go out and do more yoga, maybe without the goats next time, because it's a little bit distracting with the goats there, so you can't do that every day. And so we decided that we wanted to open a yoga studio where people would still come to Goat Yoga there, and then they could go to regular yoga classes the rest of the week so that they could buy memberships, and we could get some leverage that way. When people are paying monthly memberships, you have more of a steady income and you can keep growing and stuff like that. So we decided to try to do that, and since we were a new business, nobody would give us a lease downtown. So we kept, finding spaces that we thought that we could afford and that would be good for a yoga studio. We saved up all this money to do renovations, and everyone kept telling us, no, you're too new. This is just a trend. It's gonna die off. This isn't gonna work. We can't give you a lease. So, we weren't really sure what to do. We kept doing Goat Yoga. We were still, making money and busy with that. But at that point, Shark Tank reached out to us. So sometimes when you're focused and you're just, staying true to your goals and stuff like that, things just sort of happen and come up when you're prepared for the right opportunities. And so Shark Tank reached out to us and asked if we would be interested in applying to go on the show. And so we said, sure, why not? And I was terrified. The whole process took, I think, about 6 months before we even went out there to film. So it was a lot of interviews. We had to make it through all these different rounds of interviews and, applications and stuff like that. And like I said, it was really scary. I lost a lot of sleep. Like you said, are they mean? They are mean to a lot of people on the show, but most of the time it's because they come in with a valuation of their business that's completely ridiculous. And so we knew that we wanted to be very realistic in what we were asking them for. And so they're actually very, very nice to us, very encouraging. But yeah, it was a super scary thing, and we went on the show and we filmed and we didn't get a deal. And that was okay. What's that? We didn't get a deal. So, of course, some people would probably be very discouraged by that. We went through all this work, 6 months of hardly sleeping and, perfecting this pitch. I could tell you this pitch in my sleep probably still because we practiced it so many times, went through so many, interviews and applications and stuff like that. And then we go out there, we had to rent a car from Austin, drive for 22 hours to San Diego in a car with 4 people, 6 goats, a baby lamb that we had just rescued right before we left, and 3 little Yorkies. So it was a big car, luckily, and they're small goats, but we had to stop all along the way so that we could make sure they were outside enough and not, staying in the car too long. So it took, I think, 4 days to get there and 4 days to get back. So it was a really crazy adventure. And then we go out all the way out there and we don't get a deal. But we did learn a lot from the experience. They taught us a lot just in that, little bit of time that we spent with them. And I definitely don't regret it. I think that we learned so much. And I think that even just getting on the show, we got so much exposure and stuff like that. So it was a really cool experience. So we did that. In the meantime, while we were applying to be on Shark Tank, we actually had found somewhere that wanted us to open a yoga studio, and they were willing to give us a lease and let us, turn it into whatever we wanted to do with it. And so we were kind of in the process of doing that as we were going out to Shark Tank. So even though we didn't get a deal, we still got home and were able to open a studio and do exactly what we wanted to do in the first place. So it all kind of worked out, but again, it was kind of an adventure to get there. So that was about a year ago. So we now have had our studio open for a year. That's been a whole different challenge and brought a whole new set of just challenges and things that we've had to learn. But we're still doing Goat Yoga, even though everyone said it would die off in a year, and it's been 2.5 years and we're busier than ever. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Again, I think that if you just, as you're trying to think of what you want to do, just be open-minded, because like I said, I knew nothing about goats or yoga, and here we are. So just be open-minded to what's coming up in your life or what you're seeing, and you never know how it's going to happen. Does anyone have any questions or want me to elaborate on anything? What's that? Am I good at yoga? Now I'm decent. I teach now. I don't think anyone can be good at yoga because it's, it's a practice. It's just, it does hurt if you're tight, but it's good for you. Yes. I do teach, but I hire most of the time. I hire a lot of my teachers because when we're doing a goat yoga class, even though it's super fun, it's actually a lot of work. We're cleaning up poop a lot of the time. That's what I get to do today. And we're, making sure that everyone gets a little bit of time with a goat and making sure that the goats are safe. That's our biggest thing, making sure that people are holding them correctly, not hurting them, not scaring them. So a lot of the times, me, my fiance, his mom, we're all doing most of that. So we have to hire a teacher so that we can focus on, making sure the goats are safe and making sure everybody's having fun. Anyone else?
Do you have any competition?
This sounds mean, but they went out of business. We did have one competitor. They were out of Bastrop, and they just stopped this year. So no, not anymore.
Did they do the same exact thing or?
Not really. Our sort of niche has been since my fiance's mom raises the goats and she sells them as pets only, so they're very small. But she's constantly having babies year round. So we're able to use the really small goats in our classes, and then once they get too big, they just stay at the ranch or they go to their new homes to whoever's adopting them as pets. So a lot of the times when you see goat yoga popping up in all these other cities, you'll see a goat that's like this big, like a 100-pound goat on somebody's back. Ours are, this big. So that was kind of what we do different. We kept it very Austin, very trendy. We were on the rooftop of a parking garage with a view of downtown when we started. So now we're doing a ton of corporate events. When people come to Austin for a conference or something, we go to the Four Seasons or the JW, all these nice hotels downtown with our goats. It's really crazy. And do goat yoga for them, and that's kind of where we're making the biggest money right now. But then we also do a lot of birthday parties. Today I have 3 birthday parties. We do a lot of bachelorette parties, stuff like that. So, yeah. No, they come to us. That's another thing that we will go to the hotels and stuff like that, but for all the other parties, they come to us. And that's what's kind of, I think, also made us successful, because when you're traveling with goats, you've got to bring fencing. It takes us 2 or 3 huge vehicles just to get to an event and set it up. So I think a lot of the other companies that did it were like, oh, we'll just go to wherever people want to do it, and you get burnt out. You can only do so much. You don't want to travel with the goats too much for their safety and all of that. So, yeah.
Who's your favorite shark?
My favorite shark, I think it was Mark Cuban.
Really?
Yeah, he was the nicest to us.
The one that you usually meet?
Yeah, the really scary one. The one I was most terrified of going into it was he was super nice. He gave us a round of applause. He said, you guys are doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. What's that? Mark Cuban. Yeah, he's a Texas guy. Yeah, he was super nice. The only one that was a little annoying was, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to anyway, Mr. Wonderful, because he kept talking about he wanted to eat the goats and he was getting hungry looking at them, and he was super mean to the goats, so we were covering his ears. He's the bald one that sits in the middle normally. Yeah, he does a lot of finance and I think tech sort of stuff. But yeah, he really wanted to eat the goats, so we were covering their ears so they couldn't hear him. And the rest of the sharks really liked that. And he actually did sort of start to offer us a royalty deal. Does anybody know what a royalty deal is? No, that's a good guess though. It's kind of like So let's say we had taken the deal from him. We would have to give him a percentage or a dollar amount for every dollar that we ever made for the rest of our lives forever. And he doesn't necessarily have to do anything to help us. It was just, he started saying that and my fiance immediately said, no, we're not doing that. So the other sharks really liked that too. They were all laughing that we said no to him before he even finished his sentence. So yeah, he was a little mean, but the rest were super nice. They were very encouraging, and really, really nice and helpful.
I love it whenever like somebody says, whenever like somebody says I'm out, and then they're like, and then the people who like say something important, they're like, now you're waiting to tell us, and they're like, oh yeah, I was waiting for him to go out.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big game. It's a little scary, and since that was the only deal on the table, we didn't have to sit there and negotiate or go back and forth. And I think that's why I'm saying that they were nice to us, because if we got to that point, I'm sure it would be a different story with the negotiations. And once they start offering you a deal and you don't take it right away, they start getting mad and take it back and change it and all that. So we didn't have to go through that part, which I'm kind of glad about because that's not my specialty. I know we're going to learn about accounting today. That is not what I am the best at. But I think another piece of advice, if I could give you, is I think a lot of times people think that they have to be an expert in every area of business to own a business. And I don't think that's true. I think you have to know a little bit about every area of business, but the parts that you're not good at and you're not an expert in, you can hire people to do for you and ask for help. You might have an uncle or a brother that knows accounting. I happen to be marrying someone who's very good at accounting, and so he does it for free and I don't have to pay him, which is great. So I think, yeah, just knowing that you don't have to be an expert in every single area was helpful for me, because I definitely thought that when I wanted to start a business. Anybody else? Any random question about goats or anything? Yeah.
What did y'all do during the commercials?
So they film it all at once. So they go in and add the commercials later. Yeah. And it's, by the way, it's very real. Does anyone watch Shark Tank? Yeah. It's very real. The sharks don't know your business. They don't know your names or anything before you walk out there. That's all a surprise to them. It wasn't a total surprise for them because the goats were making a lot of noise in the back while we were waiting to film, so they kind of could hear them. But other than that, it's really a surprise to them, and they don't tell you to like stop and start or anything like that. It's all super real how you see it on TV.
You guys ever mess up?
In the show?
Yeah. What if you mess up? You have to restart?
Oh no, they don't tell you to stop, to redo it or anything like that. So it's pretty authentic. Surprisingly, we were so nervous. I think you kind of just like black out, but somehow I was talking really well and I was making sense, and we somehow did a really good job, even though it was really terrifying. So we didn't mess up too bad, I don't think. I think I said something wrong at one point, but yeah. And then the goats, of course, are animals, so you can't predict what they're going to do or how they're going to interact with the sharks, but overall, we got lucky. What's that? So Robert, the one that sits on the very right when you're watching it, he loves animals. So him and Lori actually came up to do the yoga. And so they got down and we put goats on their back and stuff like that, and they held them and all that. You can find the episode online. I'll send you the link so you can share it with them if you want. I can find the whole one. But yeah, a couple of them actually came up and did yoga. Lori was in her dress and her high heels, and she was just ready to go. She wanted to play with these goats so bad, she didn't even care. So yeah, it was a good time.
How long was the filming for that?
I think that we were in there for like 45 minutes. It felt like 4, but we came out and looked at the time and we were like, were we in there for 45 minutes? And they're like, yeah. So it's different for every business, I think. Sometimes I think the negotiations, if you get to the point where you're offered a deal, they can take hours, so you can be in there for hours. But yeah, I think we were in there for about 30 minutes to an hour.
So what's your next step in business?
Oh boy, my next step is figuring out how in the world to make a yoga studio work because there is a lot of competition for yoga studios. Goat Yoga, no, which is great. That pays our bills and keeps the doors open and you know, allowed us to do really beautiful renovations and stuff like that with the studio. But yoga studios are hard. It's there's just a lot of them here, and we're actually out in Bee Cave, so there's not as much competition, but it's just kind of the awareness thing. A lot of people now, our biggest struggle is a lot of people think that we only do goat yoga. So we've had the studio open for a year, and I still hear people walking by like, oh, that's goat yoga, that's goat yoga. So they're not realizing that we do yoga, even though we changed our logo to say yoga and goga. That was actually Lori's advice. And all that. So it's just kind of the awareness and education piece of it. So yeah, just trying to get the yoga studio sort of self-sufficient. And then ideally the goal would be to open them, you know, one up here up north, or one on the east side or something like that, or in a different city in Texas. So yeah, we'll see. That's a next year goal. Yeah. Anybody else? What kind of car do I drive? I actually bought myself a brand new Lexus about a year ago but I will say, I drove my really, really crappy Mazda that was like, I don't know, 12 or 15 years old until a year ago. Even when I started making a bunch of money and all that, my fiance had to tell me, like, you know, you can afford a car that's not breaking down, right? And I was like, oh, that's a good point. I guess I could buy a new car. So, yeah. Again, cars are fun, money's fun, but you got to make sure that you're doing something that you really love and that's fun and making an impact. Otherwise, it's not going to mean anything or work out for you. Yes? Yeah, we dress them in different things for every holiday. So for Halloween, they had Halloween costumes. We have little winter holiday outfits. We had St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, those ones were sharks. You know, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day. Every season we have different little outfits for them. They have little dresses and tutus, and everybody really loves those. For Halloween, we had a couple referees, a couple pumpkins, a skeleton. I think we had a shark. We had a little jockey where there's like something riding on their back. I swear we had probably tacos. Everybody loves the tacos. Yeah, every Halloween costume that they sell at PetSmart, we pretty much had for the goats. Anybody else?
Awesome. Well, thank
Last
you
chance?
very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.